Well, well, well. Welcome, welcome. How are we doing today? Happy Wednesday. Let me get this sound check real quick and make sure that you can hear me and that it sounds good. There he is. Check and that it sounds good. Yep, it sounds good. All right then. So yep, happy Wednesday. Welcome. Welcome to you all. One true goddess. Well, well, well. Always great to see you. And always wishing you the very best. I appreciate your company. I appreciate you popping right in with a little hello. And same to the rest of you. Whether you're new or whether you've been up and down the road with me, this is Jay Bowdale, and welcome. If you end up enjoying this content, then please be sure to hit a like, share, or subscribe. Okay, so I think I've got all my stuff just about set up. So the yap. What is the yap today? I do have a bit of yap today. So if you hate the yap, you might want to fast forward. If you like the yap, well, then you're in for a treat. Because again, yep, Swami did it to me again. Yesterday, I had to think. I had to sit and ask myself some more things, some more self reflection, and ask, like I said, as I was doing the book read, I got to that point where I said, why? So why let it stress you out if other people are out here on different varieties of, well, silliness? I don't feel it's appropriate to really use too harsh of terms. So I think silly is a fair enough one. And why indeed? Well, the best answer I have to that question is, well, I guess it's kind of a layered answer, but it's the fact that we're already in a pretty niche corner of the world having an interest in this type of stuff. It's a small pond, and I try to avoid the idea of the smaller the pond, the harder the fish fight. I'm not really trying to beef with anyone. Really, what I've said before is more I want to see people step their game up. And because we're in this smaller corner, we're in this smaller pond, we'll just use that terminology. Welcome in everybody just coming in. Because we're in this smaller pond, um the voices that are amplified within the pond are also pretty few and far between. And so I said the thing before about that Manly P. Hall had said, so I was re-quoting him talking about this type of knowledge, and that a huge reason I'm not going to charge you anything other than your time and I guess your energy a little bit, because you do got to kind of put some energy into this type of stuff, is because this work itself is already more than enough of a cost, especially when you want to start mixing in different types of spirits. Now, also, I guess the reason I get frustrated with the influencers that have anywhere from tens to hundreds of thousands of followers, who can be so great sometimes and then so ridiculous other times, is because, especially at that level of influence, you have such a huge responsibility to those people who look to you as an example, who look to you as a source of wisdom, who look to you as a teacher, who look to you as someone they're trying to be like. And so when I see the ridiculous aspects of it, it's hard not to get a little bit of frustrated. But also, as I said in the stream yesterday, that's where at a certain point I have to decide just how much guidance and energy and all of that I want to try to put into it. And at what point I just got to let it go. And those things can be a challenge to sit with. I would love if in that sense of a perfect world that it was a lot more few and far between of those few and far between influencers, that only a couple of them were really on some serious silliness. But unfortunately, the majority of them have at least some degree of it. But hey, I better point the mirror at myself. I better just worry about my levels of ridiculousness at a certain point. So yeah, that's about all the yap I had. So if you find any of this yap to be beneficial to you and your seeking into the mystical realms, then awesome. That's what I would love. But if you just, I don't know, if it gets to you in some type of way or another, well then hey, whatever. Welcome into those of you who are just coming in. And I guess one other thing I have to really remind myself is that take the spirituality out of it. I've seen plenty of people out here who actually know what they're talking about, who will debunk things like certain conspiracy theories, certain things that unfortunately have flared up again, like anti-Semitism, and people who actually know what they're talking about, just showing the ridiculousness of this. But rather than any of those people say, dang, I was wrong, thanks, man, they just double and triple and quadruple down on the nonsense. And so, again, I have my one IRL friend in mind a lot when I'm thinking of these examples. It's not like I really have, well, the social media influencers of spirituality on the one hand, but on the other hand, him. And so when I'm thinking of the other common folk, the other people who are more in my area of this already small pond, yeah, I certainly will have him in mind a lot because he can be that way very much, where I will try to point out ridiculous things and he gets really upset. He gets really upset because it's the ego type of stuff, you know what I mean? And then in some ways he'll start straightening himself out, but then in other ways he'll just maintain the ridiculousness and honestly, it's pretty heartbreaking because the dude is just kind of losing his mind. And then when I try to help him out, he doesn't really care, or he kind of cares, or whatever. And I've already watched another friend in this life lose their mind, and it sucks. It's one of the crappiest things when somebody you really love and care about legitimately goes mad. And so I would like to certainly try to help any people who may be experiencing that, but are certainly in a place where they can easily correct that. Or even maybe if you have people in your life, I don't know, that you've noticed. I think everybody probably has to burn their hand on the stove a little bit in that way, where you have the friend who you're like, whoa, you should check out magic. And then next thing you know, they're losing their mind. And then you learn really quick, I probably shouldn't tell people about magic. And so that's a little bit annoying too, when we are such a niche group. And so there are so few people who you can actually like talk about and have these conversations about. And then there's people out here who seem to be the influence in that realm, but you got to pay. You got to go behind a paywall to get in their VIP group chats to the people who are actually talking about magic. And even then, half the time, nothing's even happening in those groups. So it's like, what am I even paying this money for? Well, at least that's been my experience. Maybe your experience has been different. And if so, please let me know because I don't mind having conversations at all. I don't mind hearing feedback one way or the other. Whether it's nope, you're totally out of pocket, you're just wrong, come hang out in this group and see, come over to this channel and see, or whether it's like, hey man, thanks for saying that, it actually gave me some more to think about, or I don't know, I guess just don't say anything if that's how you feel. Whatever. 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 I love you all though very much, and I want to see wonderful things from those of you who I do talk with and who are so very wonderful. But you know that I've said that part already. I guess it's worth it. It is worth repeating from time to time. Okay, now that I've yapped for 10 minutes, and I think I've said about all I was finding it would be potentially useful to say, let's play our music, let's pull our tarot card, and let's finish up this book. So happy Wednesday. Happy day of Mercury. Happy day of Wedness. Wedness. I don't know where that one comes from. Like Thursday, Thor, Saturday, Saturn. Maybe somebody can at least drop in the comments. I know I can go Google it, whatever. I like to see what other people have to say from time to time. Wedness, how does that equal Mercury? Sounds kind of like Venus, but not really. I guess if you were like Scandinavian, because then you'd be like Vedness, but that's Venus, that's Friday. So hey, hit me up with that one. All right, enough. Let's pull a card. I hope it is a good Vedness day, though. I hope it is a very good one for you all. Book of Thoth, what do you have for us today as we finish up this Karma Yoga book study? As we go forth into our action, into our work, trying our very best to get to that level of unattached doing. One more. Let's go one more. All right, split it. That card right there. Trump. I see a Trump when my fingers were on it. Here, let's try again. It's the Universe card. Nope, not at all. It's a Swords. Four of Swords. Okay. Jupiter in Libra. And air. So Yetzirah. Chesed in the world of Yetzirah. So Hesed, so that's a double hit of Jupiter even because it's Hesed and it's Jupiter in Libra. Jupiter with expansiveness, Jupiter with love. This one here, we see the four cards, so we can look at that as kind of like also our four different elements turned inward on the center. So perhaps in the sense we need to turn our thoughts to that inner place, especially, or we need to turn more what we need to do. Maybe air being the main element we need to focus on, but if we're going to go ahead and say all four elements, the way we need to be constantly returning to spirit, returning to that place of source. Libra with the balance. So this is certainly one of the better sword cards, although a truce is a bit different from like the two of swords, which is peace. A truce doesn't mean that the fight is over. It just means that the fighting has stopped for now. A truce can lead to peace, but also a truce sometimes can lead back into fighting. So it seems like that's probably where we're at right now. We're in that place of rest. We're looking to how we can probably expand forward in a more loving Jupiterian way, but also the four does typically lead to the five. Or to the three. Either way, it kind of if we're talking tree of life, either way, it leads into a sphere that, although I don't know, I guess I would probably rather go up and cross the abyss to Bina than go into the defeat of Gibura. If we're looking at it in that way, in what way we can take this truth, or maybe we just need to stay resting in a place of truth. Am I reading anything else? Am I reading anything else off this right now? That's about it. That's about all I'm getting from it right now. So if that hits for you, then that's our energy. If not, then, well, then I guess it's not for you. Let's finish this book up. Oh, maybe that's the rest we're gonna find ourselves at. We'll finish this book, and then we'll be tomorrow on to Class B. But then we'll be looking at what are we gonna do next for Class A. Well, I've got some ideas, but we can talk about that at the end of the stream. So our final chapter, which isn't way too long of a chapter, about 14 pages or something like that. The ideal of karma yoga. So we've already been through in this book what karma yoga is, the way to and to not go about karma yoga, to view things like duty. But let's finish it. Let's see what last bit Swami V's got for us. Four also keep so that four for our tarot too is that's the sphere of the demiurge too. So perhaps that's the way it's hitting for some people as you're feeling the you're feeling the influence of the demiurge, but maybe it's a truce. You're coming to the realization that you're ready to make truce with that demiurge. All right. Anyway, let's go ahead and do it. So the final chapter, chapter 8, the ideal of karma yoga. The grandest idea in the religion of the Vedanta is that we may reach the same goal by different paths. And these paths I have generalized into four. These, those of work, love, psychology, and knowledge. There's our four right there. Swami V did it to us right off the rip. And also, that's something like my one buddy will say to me at times if there's times where I'll try to just be like, hey, do what thou wilt, but also, buddy, I think you're kind of screwing up right here. He'll say things like that to just kind of dismiss it. There's many paths up the mountain, bro. Yeah, dude. Well, there's just as many paths that are going to lead you off a cliff, but hey. But he is right on the one hand. There are many paths up the mountain, so don't think I'm saying that ever. I'm not ever trying to tell you guys there's one way to do anything. There definitely are many paths to the up the holy mountain. But there definitely are as many paths that are going to lead you right off a cliff, or lead you right into a bear's den, or lead you into a sinkhole, or lead you into some billionaire's property where they're going to have drones come and shoot you, or I don't know, something like that. Who knows what? Anyway, but you must at the same time remember that these divisions are not very marked and quite exclusive of each other. Each blends into the other, but according to the type which prevails, we name the divisions. Okay. So the way we'll use our mind, we'll look at that tarot as into what he just said. So the way we'll use our mind, and those are the four branches of that. The way we use our mind for work, love, psychology, and knowledge. It is not that you can find men who have no other faculty than that of work, nor that you can find men who are no more devoted to work, who are no more than devoted worshippers only, nor that there are men who have no more than mere knowledge. These divisions are made in accordance with the type or the tendency that may be seen to prevail in a man. We have found that in the end, all these four paths converge and become one. Ho ho ho, yep. So see, there you go. That's why they are all pointed into the lotus. Man, those tarot really have been hitting with these books. They'll do that to you. All religions and all methods of work and worship lead us to one and the same goal. I have already tried to point out that goal. It is freedom, as I understand it. Everything that we perceive around us is struggling towards freedom, from the atom to the man, from the insentient, lifeless particle of matter to the highest existence on earth, the human soul. The whole universe is in fact a result of this struggle for freedom. In all combinations, every particle is trying to go on its own way to fly from the other particles, but the others are holding it in check. Our Earth is trying to fly away from the sun, and the moon from the Earth. Everything has a tendency to infinite dispersion. All that we see in the universe has for its basis this one struggle towards freedom. It is under the impulse of this tendency that the saint prays and the robber robs. When the line of action taken is not a proper one, we call it evil, and when the manifestation of it is proper and high, we call it good. But the impulse is the same, the struggle towards freedom. The saint is oppressed with the knowledge of his condition of bondage, and he wants to get rid of it, so he worships God. The thief is oppressed with the idea that he does not possess certain things, and he tries to get rid of that want to obtain freedom from it. So he steals. Huh. Freedom is the one goal of all nature, sentient or insentient, and consciously or unconsciously, everything is struggling towards that goal. The freedom which the saint seeks is very different from that which the robber seeks. The freedom loved by the saint leads him to the enjoyment of infinite, unspeakable bliss, while that on which the robber has set his heart only forges other bonds for his soul. There is to be found in every religion the manifestation of this struggle towards freedom. It is the groundwork of all morality, of unselfishness, which means getting rid of the idea that men are the same as their little body. When we see a man doing good work, helping others, it means that he cannot be confined within the limited circle of me and mine. There is no limit to this getting out of selfishness. All the great systems of ethics preach absolute unselfishness as the goal. Supposing this absolute unselfishness can be reached by a man, what becomes of him? Okay, so that's another way to look at our Four of Swords, right? The unchecked giving nature of Chesed, of Jupiter, that's part of the function of Gibora is to check Chesed so that it doesn't just give and give and give until there's nothing left to give. Um, But if we also kind of strip away that idea and remember that this is actually part of the energy of God, of the energy of the universe, so consciousness, that in terms of the way you approach your fellow man, it's and in the kind of the Buddhist idea of things where it's all suffering. But the only way you can win the game is by having compassion to all of that suffering, and just compassion always is really the way to win the game. So that would fall under chesed, and especially if we're talking about in our mind specifically, because in our mind we get really in our head, in our mind all the time, in our thoughts. But if we can always turn those back to that center of compassion, there you go. Let's see. Supposing this absolute unselfishness can be reached by a man, what becomes of him? He is no more the little Mr. So and so. He has acquired infinite expansion. The little personality which he had before is now lost to him forever. He has become infinite, and the attainment of this infinite expansion is indeed the goal of all religions and of all moral and philosophical teachings. All right, highlight that a little bit real quick. All right. The personalist, when he hears this idea philosophically put, gets frightened. At the same time, if he preaches morality, he after all teaches the very same idea himself. He puts no limit to the unselfishness of man. Suppose a man becomes perfectly unselfish under the personalistic system. How are we to distinguish him from the perfected ones in other systems? He has become one with the universe, and to become that is the goal of all. Only the poor personalist has not the courage to follow out his own reasoning to its right conclusion. Karma Yoga is the attaining through unselfish work of that freedom which is the goal of all human nature. Every selfish action, therefore, retards our reaching the goal, and every unselfish action takes us towards the goal. That is why the only definition that can be given of morality is this: that which is selfish is immoral, and that which is unselfish is moral. I'm not even gonna say it. Swami V already said it. There you go. And that's why what I will say though is that's why when you do pay more attention to what's going on out here, you realize the road to hell really is paved with good intentions. Because even if a lot of these people mean well, still, what is it really rooted in a lot of the time? How many of them are actually being unselfish versus how many of them are being selfish? And we can take it out of the spirituality, take it out of the magic and all that, and just look at that all the time in life too. But if you come to details, the matter will not be seen to be quite so simple. For instance, environment often makes the details different, as I have already mentioned. The same action under one set of circumstances may be unselfish, and under another set, quite selfish. So we can give only a general definition and leave the details to be worked out by taking into consideration the differences in time, place, and circumstances. Yeah, you do. I mean, you do got to factor in. There's a lot to factor in. So I that's why the main thing I'll try to hammer home is to just pay attention. Because sometimes you probably are getting your money's worth, and sometimes you probably are thinking like, man, I didn't really pay all that much for this course from this person, from whatever it might be, and it actually is the thing that turned my whole entire life around. And if that's what that person was intending all along, then I would look at that as more unselfish than selfish. But hey, just just keep your head on a swivel, as they say. In one country, one kind of conduct is considered moral, and in another, the very same is immoral, because the circumstances differ. The goal of all nature is freedom, and freedom is to be attained only by perfect unselfishness. Every thought, word, or deed that is unselfish takes us toward the goal, and as such is called moral. That definition you will find holds good in every religion and every system of ethics. In some systems of thought, morality is derived from a superior being, God. If you ask why a man ought to do this and not that, the answer is because such is the command of God. But whatever be the source from which it is derived, their code of ethics also has the same central idea: not to think of self, but to give up self. And yet, some persons, in spite of this high ethical idea, are frightened at the thought of having to give up their little personalities. We may ask the man who clings to the idea of little personalities to consider the case of a person who has become perfectly unselfish, who has no thought for himself, who does no deed for himself, who speaks no word for himself, and then say where his himself is. That himself is known to him only so long as he thinks, acts, or speaks for himself. If he is only conscious of others, of the universe, and of the all, where is himself? It is gone forever. Kiss it goodbye. Karma Yoga, therefore, is a system of ethics, and religion intended to attain freedom through unselfishness and by good works. The Karma Yogi need not believe in any doctrine whatever. He may not believe in even in God, may not ask what his soul is, nor think of any metaphysical speculation. He has got his own special aim of realizing selflessness, and he has to work it out himself. Every moment of his life must be realization, because he has to solve by mere work, without the help of doctrine or theory, the very same problem to which the Jnani applies his reason and inspiration, and the Bhakta his love. Now comes the question: what is this work? What is this doing good to the world? Can we do good to the world? In an absolute sense, no. In a relative sense, yes. No permanent or everlasting good can be done to the world. If it could be done, the world would not be this world. We may satisfy the hunger of a man for 5 minutes, but he will be hungry again. Every pleasure with which we supply a man may be seen to be momentary. Oh no. No one can permanently cure this ever recurring fever of pleasure and pain. Can any permanent happiness be given to the world? In the ocean, we cannot raise a wave without causing a hollow somewhere else. The sum total of the good things in the world has been the same throughout in its relation to man's need and greed. It cannot be increased or decreased. Take the history of the human race as we know it today. Do we not find the same miseries and the same happiness, the same pleasures and pains, the same differences in position? Are not some rich, some poor, some high, some low, some healthy, some unhealthy? All this was just the same with the Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Romans in ancient times as it is with the Americans today. So far as history is known, it has always been the same. Yet, at the same time, we find that running along with all these incurable differences of pleasure and pain, there has ever been the struggle to alleviate them. Every period of history has given birth to thousands of men and women who have worked hard to smooth the passage of life for others. And how far have they succeeded? Yeah, see, I might be trying to smooth your passage, but how am I even succeeding? I don't know, maybe. But at a certain point, just got to let it go. We can only play at driving the ball from one place to another. We take away pain from the physical plane and it goes to the mental one. It is like that picture in Dante's Hell, where the misers were given a mass of gold to roll up a hill. Every time they rolled it up a little, it again rolled down. All our talks about the millennium are very nice as schoolboys' stories, but they are no better than that. All nations that dream of the millennium also think that, of all peoples in the world, they will have the best of it then for themselves. This is the wonderfully unselfish idea of the millennium. We cannot add happiness to this world. Similarly, we cannot add pain to it either. The sum total of the energies of pleasure and pain displayed here on earth will be the same throughout. We just push it from this side to the other side, and from that side to this, but it will remain the same, because to remain so is its very nature. This ebb and flow, this rising and falling, is in the world's very nature. It would be as logical to hold otherwise as to say that we may have life without death. This is complete nonsense, because the very idea of life implies death, and the very idea of pleasure implies pain. The lamp is constantly burning out, and that is its life. If you want to have life, you have to die every moment for it. Life and death are only different expressions of the same thing looked at from different standpoints. They are the falling and the rising of the same wave, and the two form one whole. One looks at the fall side and becomes a pessimist. Another looks at the rise side and becomes an optimist. When a boy is going to school and his father and mother are taking care of him, everything seems blessed to him. His wants are simple. He is a great optimist. But the old man, with his varied experience, becomes calmer and is sure to have his warmth considerably cooled down. So, old nations with signs of decay all around them are apt to be less hopeful than new nations. There is a proverb in India: 1,000 years a city and 1,000 years a forest. This change of city into forest and vice versa is going on everywhere, and it makes people optimists or pessimists according to the side they see of it. The next idea we take, and I see that's what I've said about this other situation too, where even if I might have a, and I wouldn't even call it a pessimistic outlook, but if I just see stuff that to me seems like nonsense, there's going to be other people out there who see it as the most wonderful thing that's happened to them. So, two sides to every coin, huh? We are swimming in duality out here. Let's see, I finished that. The next idea we take up is the idea of equality. These millennium ideas have been great motive powers to work. Many religions preach this as an element in them, that God is coming to rule the universe, and that there will be no difference at all in conditions. The people who preach this doctrine are mere fanatics, and fanatics are indeed the sincerest of mankind. Christianity was preached just on the basis of the fascination of this fanaticism, and that is what made it so attractive to the Greek and the Roman slaves. They believed that under the millennial religion, there would be no more slavery, that there would be plenty to eat and drink, and therefore they flocked round the Christian standard. Those who preached the idea first were, of course, ignorant fanatics, but very sincere. In modern times, this millennial aspiration takes the form of equality, of liberty, equality, and fraternity. This is also fanaticism. True equality has never been and never can be on earth. How can we all be equal here? Dang, there's going to be a lot of people who don't want to hear that one. This impossible kind of equality implies total death. What makes this world what it is? Lost balance. In the primal state, which is called chaos, there is perfect balance. How do all the formative forces of the universe come then? By struggling, competition, conflict. Suppose that all the particles of matter were held in equilibrium. Would there be then any process of creation? We know from science that it is impossible. Disturb a sheet of water, and there you find every particle of the water trying to become calm again, one rushing against the other. And in the same way, all the phenomena which we call the universe, all things therein, are struggling to get back to the state of perfect balance. Again, a disturbance comes, and again we have combination and creation. Inequality is the very basis of creation. Oh, jeez. At the same time, the forces are struggling to obtain equality. At the same time, the forces struggling to obtain equality are as much a necessity of creation as those which destroy it. Absolute equality, that which means a perfect balance of all the struggling forces and all the planes, can never be in this world. Before you attain that state, the world will have become quite unfit for any kind of life, and no one will be there. We find, therefore, that all these ideas of the millennium and of absolute equality are not only impossible, but also that, If we try to carry them out, they will lead us surely enough to the day of destruction. What makes the difference between man and man? It is largely the difference in the brain. Nowadays, no one but a lunatic will say that we are all born with the same brain power. We come into the world with unequal endowments. We come as greater men or as lesser men, and there is no getting away from that prenatally determined condition. The American Indians were in this country for thousands of years, and a few handfuls of your ancestors came to their land. What difference they have caused in the appearance of the country. Why did not the Indians make improvements and build cities if all were equal? With your ancestors, a different sort of brain power came into the land. Different bundles of past impressions came, and they worked out and manifested themselves. Absolute non differentiation is death. So long as this world lasts, differentiation there will and must be, and the millennium of perfect equality will come only when a cycle of creation comes to its end. Before that, equality cannot be. Yet, this idea of realizing the millennium is a great motive power. Just as inequality is necessary for creation itself, so the struggle to limit it is also necessary. If there were no struggle to become free and get back to God, there would be no creation either. It is the difference between these two forces that determines the nature of the motives of men. There will always be these motives to work, some tending towards bondage and others towards freedom. This world's wheel within wheel is a terrible mechanism. If we put our hands in it, as soon as we are caught, we are gone. We all think that when we have done a certain duty, we shall be at rest. But before we have done a part of that duty, another is already in waiting. We are all being dragged along by this mighty, complex world machine. There are only two ways out of it. One is to give up all concerns with the machine, to let it go and stand aside, to give up our desires. That is very easy to say, but is almost impossible to do. I do not know whether in 20 millions of men one can do that. The other way is to plunge into the world and learn the secret of work, and that is the way of karma yoga. Do not fly away from the wheels of the world machine, but stand inside it and learn the secret of work. Through proper work done inside, it is also possible to come out. Through this machinery itself is the way out. The only way out is through, right? We have now seen what work is. It is a part of nature's foundation and goes on always. Those that believe in God understand this better because they know that God is not such an incapable being as will need our help. Although this universe will go on always, our goal is freedom. Our goal is unselfishness. And according to Karma Yoga, that goal is to be reached through work. All ideas of making the world perfectly happy may be good as motive powers for fanatics, but we must know that fanaticism brings forth as much evil as good. The Karma Yogi asks why you require any motive to work other than the inborn love of freedom. Be beyond the common worldly motives. To work, you have the right, but not to the fruits thereof. Man can train himself to know and to practice that, says the Karma Yogi. When the idea of doing good becomes a part of his very being, then he will not seek for any motive outside. Let us do good because it is good to do good. He who does good work, even in order to get to heaven, binds himself down, says the Karma Yogi. Any work that is done with any the least selfish motive, instead of making us free, forges one more chain for our feet. just do good because it is good to do good. And like you already said, work for work's sake. So the only way to give up all the fruits of work, so the only way is to give up all the fruits of work, to be unattached to them. Know that this world is not we, nor are we this world, that we are really not the body, that we really do not work. We are the self, eternally at rest and at peace. Why should we be bound by anything? It is very good to say that we should be perfectly non attached, but what is the way to do it? Every good work we do without any ulterior motive, instead of forging a new chain, will break one of the links in the existing chains. Let's read that one again. Every good work we do without any ulterior motive, instead of forging a new chain, will break one of the links in the existing chains. Every good thought that we send to the world without thinking of any return will be stored up there and break one link in the chain and make us purer and purer until we become the purest of mortals. Yet all this may seem to be rather quixotic and too philosophical, more theoretical than practical. I need to highlight quite a bit on that. I have read many arguments against the Gita, and many have said that without motives, you cannot work. They have never seen unselfish work except under the influence of fanaticism, and therefore they will speak in that way. That's important right there, exactly. Because then it's not unselfish because it's fanatical, but it looks unselfish on the surface. And so that's really what I see a lot too with a lot of like the popular influencers out here is they'll be so quick to just take a dump all over mainstream religion, all over the church, just to give you a whole new set of chains to put on. Let me tell you in conclusion a few words about one man who actually carried this teaching of karma yoga into practice. That man is Buddha. He is the one man who ever carried this into perfect practice. All the prophets of the world, except Buddha, had external motives to move them to unselfish action. The prophets of the world, with this single exception, may be divided into two sets. One set holding that they are incarnations of God come down on earth, and the other holding that they are only messengers from God, and both draw their impetus for work from outside, expect reward from outside, however highly spiritual may be the language they use. There you go. Both draw their impetus for work from outside, expect reward from outside, however highly spiritual may be the language they use. But Buddha is the only prophet who said, I do not care to know your various theories about God. What is the use of discussing all the subtle doctrines about the soul? Do good and be good, and this will take you to freedom and to whatever truth there is. He was, in the conduct of his life, absolutely without personal motives. And what man worked more than he? Show me in history one character who has soared so high above all. The whole human race has produced but one such character, such high philosophy, such wide sympathy. This great philosopher, preaching the highest philosophy, yet had the deepest sympathy for any. Hold on, I gotta start that one over. This great philosopher, preaching the highest philosophy, yet had the deepest sympathy for the lowest of animals, and never put forth any chains for himself. He is the ideal karma yogi, acting entirely without motive, and the history of humanity shows him to have been the greatest man ever born. Beyond compare, the greatest combination of heart and brain that ever existed, the greatest soul power that has ever been manifested. He is the first great reformer the world has seen. He was the first who dared to say, "Believe not because some old manuscripts are produced. Believe not because it is your national belief, because you have been made to believe it from your childhood. But reason it all out, and after you have analyzed it, then, if you find that it will do good to one and all, believe it, live up to it, and help others to live up to it. He works best who works without any motive, neither for money, nor for fame, nor for anything else. And when a man can do that, he will be a Buddha. And out of him will come the power to work in such a manner as will transform the world. This man represents the very highest ideal of karma yoga." And page 144, too. Jeez, man. Yeah. That does it. That does it. Swami V went out swinging. I'm just gonna highlight all that last bit. So really, really, I invite you to please ask yourself, why are you doing this? Why are you interested in all of this? Why? And I thank you for being here because I'm sure if you're here and you put up with my yap and it doesn't send you the other direction and you enjoy these teachings that I've been bringing to you, then it's probably because you have a pretty good answer to that question. But if you don't, then you really do need to figure out the answer to that question. And right there, Buddha, he gave you that from what Buddha said himself. So anyway, that's it. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here for the Karma Yoga book study. This will, as you can see, this will certainly fall into your category of purification for that work towards the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. So tomorrow we'll hop back into class B, back into the understanding of our Bible, but certainly sit with this text. Sit with it, put it into practice, sit with it some more. And when we get back to class A, part of me wants to hop into back into magic, but I also think I might do something else quickly in the meantime before we hop back into magic. So either way though, if you're wanting to have the books so you can read along, have them on your shelf to reference back to return to, then the magic book I'm pretty confident I'm going to do is we're going to do Eliphas Levy's Transcendental Magic. But I think before that, I might go ahead and do the Hermetica because that one's a bit like I'm pretty sure I could get through the Hermetica in like just a few days, and it's very, very good information, very useful information. And then that'll give us an opportunity to knock out because then by that point too, I think we'll be pretty much wrapping up on how to understand your Bible. So then if that's the case, then that just gives us two kind of fresh classes after that. So one of them will for sure be Eliphas Levi's Transcendental Magic. I'm pretty confident that's the move. Mm, Yeah, because I mean we could do Crowley, but I think we should do Eliphas Levy. And then I guess I would still have to decide what to maybe do for another class. So now you've got a little bit of a heads up, and I'm looking forward to it. I don't really have much else to say. Thank you for joining me for this book study. Thank you for joining me over on this channel to learn these things along with me, to apply these things along with me. Or at the very least, like that guy yesterday, to pop in and say some wild stuff in the chat. Oh boy. Well, okay, so much love. Thank you for being here. This has been Jay Baldell, and this has been Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga. I will see you tomorrow for Class B. Bye bye.